Some of life's most precious moments pass very quickly. Many, many times over the years here at this church, I've had the wonderful privilege of taking the journey with someone who is headed toward the baptismal font up front, met within my office, listened to their questions, talked about God and what He might think and desire for them as revealed in Scripture. And then finally comes that moment when we sit on the steps, listening to the congregation, coming to that point of baptism. And we finally step out into the water, and in a couple of moments, dripping wet, they exit the baptismal font. Some of life's most precious moments pass quickly. Countless times I've had the wonderful privilege of meeting with young couples as they are thinking about and planning their life together. We've sat in my office and talked about the challenges, the joys, the ups, the downs, the questions, the uncertainties, and a little bit of the conflict that goes on in every family when you lead up to that big moment. And throughout it all, I'm trying to nudge them from thinking just about wedding to thinking about marriage. But then the day comes. Family, friends, music, romance, and before they know it, it's past. Some of life's most precious moments are brief. This is one of those moments. You have spent years, we've heard it in these stunning stories. You've spent years coming to this moment in time. There have been ups and downs, twists and turns, hard times and good times, tests, all-nighters, papers, boards. It's all happened. And finally now, here you are at this moment in time. So let me just encourage. Slow down. If I might speak as one who has gray in his beard, unless it's for pictures for this weekend, set aside your phone. Focus on friends, on family. Say thank you to parents, to spouses, to siblings, to professors, and enjoy the moment to the full. Because before you know it, it will be in the rearview mirror, and there will be new challenges ahead. As you face those new challenges, you take much with you from this place. You take all that you have learned, the skills that you have developed, the knowledge that you have nurtured. You take it all with you, and you're able to go into a world ahead to make a profound difference in the lives of many people. But I hope there's one other thing you take with you when you move from this place. I hope that etched into your heart, clear in your mind, and echoing in your ears is the mission of this place, to continue the teaching and healing ministry of Jesus Christ. That will be your priority. The text that Dr. Handysides read is a text that has rumbled around in my mind for many, many years. It first came to the forefront for me in seminary. I was in seminary. We were studying all kinds of classes, dealing with all different kinds of theology, and wrestling with what we thought were the big questions of life. Among those big questions was the question, who is God? What does God look like? Where is God? I thought we had wrestled with those questions at seminary until I got to Loma University. A few years after I was here, when I was at the School of Religion, one of my dearest professors, New Testament professor from seminary, joined our team, Ivan Blazin. I remember so well what Ivan told me one day. He said, Randy, at seminary, we asked and we wrestled with and we dealt with what I'll call, said Ivan, ivory tower questions. But once I got to Loma Linda, we couldn't do that anymore. We had students who were at the chair side, who were at the bedside, who were coming from the clinic, students who were confronting profound suffering, difficulty, challenge, grief. And suddenly he said the questions in the classroom are no longer ivory tower. They are raw and they are real. And it was then that this passage came back to me again. Because that question, where is God? Who is God? What does God look like? Is real to many of you who walk these hallways and who today walk this aisle. With your permission, I want to read the passage one more time, 1 John 4, beginning with verse 7. John says, "Dear friends, let us continue to love one another, for love comes from God. Anyone who loves is a child of God and knows God. But anyone who does not love does not know God, for God is love. God showed us how much He loved us by sending His one and only Son into the world so that we might have eternal life through Him. This is real love, not that we loved God, but that He loved us and sent His Son as a sacrifice to take away our sins. Dear friends, since God loved us that much, we surely ought to love each other. No one has ever seen God. But if we love each other, God lives in us, and His love is brought to full expression in us." Who is God? What does God look like? If I understand the premise of John's words here correctly, I think John is telling us exactly who God looks like. So it gets me to thinking about that issue of looking like someone. Kids will often get the statement, "You look just like your mother, you resemble your father." Well, there was a trio of friends who got together in the UK quite a number of years ago now, and they decided that they were going to test the theory that says there are 7 people in the world who look just like you. They decided, let's try that out. They would end up founding an entity called Twin Strangers. They'll help you find your twin stranger too. But today I want to go all the way back to the beginning, to that very first video. And I want you to watch the beginning of their journey on the screen.
Hi, I'm Neil.
I'm Terence. And I'm Harry.
And we're trying to find our twin strangers from anywhere in the world.
Basically, we've set ourselves a challenge, and we have 1 month starting from today to find people that look really, really like us or almost completely identical.
Here she is!
Since you got out of the car, like down there, I haven't stopped like looking at you because it's weird. Like it's really, really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, she probably looks closer than some of my sisters to me. Like it's so insane. Maybe we should like try something out to make us look more similar.
Yeah, get it closer, yeah.
We're close. We're
Definitely close. Oh, that's good. You're really quick. You look like me there. That's crazy.
Sorry.
So guys, this is it. Makeup and hair. What do you think?
Now, you can't watch something like that without asking the question, well, who looks like me? In fact, I got to thinking about this service and got to wondering, who looks like some of the key people here today. I have an acquaintance, I don't know him well yet, but he was very helpful in this. He goes by initials just like many people in the South where I'm from go by. So I asked him, I said, AI, would you help me? Because I'd like to know whether or not some of the people here have some lookalikes in Hollywood. So AI was willing. That's a good thing about AI. And I said, AI, what about the president of the graduating class of the School of Pharmacy, Ahmed Barjari? You'll see his picture on the screen right now. Who does Ahmed look like? And AI answered, and here's the answer. I looked at that answer and said, wow, not bad. Mario Lopez. Who knew we had A.C. Slater in our midst, Saved by the Bell? You thought he was studying. He was doing some other work down the road from us. But it wasn't just him that I was interested in, and I thought, what about the dean of the School of Pharmacy, Kyle Souza? AI, can you tell me, is there anyone that in Hollywood that he looks like? And AI answered with this answer. Said, wow. Look at that, Jason Lee. Did you know that possibly your dean had a background in skateboarding and my name is Earl? Those kinds of things. Pretty remarkable. Now, the next one is a great interest to me because this could set off an inter-family squabble. Because the next one, the president of the school of, not the school, but the graduating class of the School of Dentistry happens to be my son-in-law. So this is Matthew Cosart. So Matthew, I said, AI, tell me, who does Matthew look like? And this was AI's answer. Look at that, Josh Groban. I looked at that and I said, no wonder, Matthew, when you walk into the room, I feel like you lift me up. It's a beautiful thing. And then finally, we had to ask about the dean of the School of Dentistry, right? Dr. Rob Handysides. AI, who does Rob Handysides look like? And the answer was, there you go, Roger Avery, Canadian-American screenwriter, producer. I tell you, if your day job doesn't work out, you've got a place. But then there are those that are beyond just the specific classes that are graduating today. I asked AI, tell me about our provost, Ron Carter. Ron Carter, who leads the march here at graduation. I said, is there anybody that Ron Carter looks like? And do you know what AI said? AI said, yes, there is. It's George Lucas. George Lucas. And I looked at that and I said, you know, there are a couple of ways that Ron Carter and George Lucas are very similar. I mean, the first one is a similarity you see before you. And the second one is that George Lucas, father of Indiana Jones, father of Star Wars, is worth right in the neighborhood of $7 billion. Ron Carter. Well, let's go to the next one. The next one is Dr. Hart. We have to ask about Dr. Hart, right? Now, Dr. Hart, I tried to warn AI and say, now be careful because I want to be able to maybe still march in one or two of these. AI, who does Dr. Hart look like? And the answer was John Cleese, the actor. Now, if you don't think so, you take it up with my friend AI. But that was the answer. I mean, John Cleese, the star of some of the most morally uplifting movies like Monty Python. This is AI's answer, not my answer. Well, I couldn't come to the end of that without having a few thoughts about me. Is there anybody out there, I wondered, who looks like me? Now, the first part of that answer was very easy because a number of years ago, I began to get emails from people, letters from people, people coming by my office, dropping off pictures saying, have you gone to work for Costco? I said, what are you talking about? They said, Costco, look at this. It's your picture. This is the picture that they would bring by working for Costco. Look at that guy, poor guy, but I tell you, I thought there is a similarity. But I said, in line with the fact that our interest today is what about all these people and Hollywood? Do they look like it? I said, okay, I know exactly in Hollywood who I look like. It wasn't a problem at all. It's a striking resemblance to the one you'll see on the screen right now. I mean, it's almost eerie, isn't it? Like looking in a mirror. Miguel, I'm trying to figure out why everyone's laughing. We all would like to know, is there somebody out there that looks like me? But the far more important, the much deeper question is the question you face in the clinic setting, in the hospital room, on the floor, on the ward, with the patient who suffers and asks that question, where is God? What does God look like? John says, if we trace his thought in this passage, first of all, God is love. That's his three-word statement that continues to reverberate throughout all the ages, spreading hope where it goes. God is love. But it's almost as though John thought, after reading that, it's almost as though he thought, after scratching that statement onto parchment with the quill pen, there are going to be people who are going to say, how do we know that? How do we know that God is love? And so he follows it up by saying, in order for you to know that God is love, all you have to do is look at Jesus. God sent his Son into the world because God is love. So look at Jesus. Jesus, the one who could actually say to one of his questioning disciples, who is God? What does he look like? Show me God. Jesus says, have I been so long with you, Philip, and you haven't known me? The one who has seen me has seen God. The supreme revelation of God. But you say, your patient says, that's 2,000 years ago. I haven't seen a sketch of Jesus, certainly not a photograph of Jesus. That's a long time ago. What does God look like here, now, today? Who does God look like? And so John writes that last verse. This is the verse that from seminary forward has continued to rumble around in my mind, especially at moments when people ask that profound question. I want to read it one more time. It's verse 12. John writes, no one has ever seen God. But if we love each other, God lives in us, and his love is brought to full expression in us. May I paraphrase those words? What does God look like? Who does God look like? John says, no one has ever seen God, but when we love, God's love is brought to completion, and in that moment, you can see God's fingerprints all over everything. When we love. A local pastor wrote about a moment where you see God. They were a family, he writes, in the San Francisco Bay Area. The son's name was David Kraft. His father was a pastor. David Kraft grew up with a father who constantly remembered God's faithfulness in the past so that David might trust God in all of his tomorrows. David grew up in love with Jesus, and he felt the call of God into the pastoral ministry. David was a big, athletic young man. At 32, he was 6 feet 2 inches tall and 200 pounds. He worked with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And then he was diagnosed with cancer. It racked his body, and over a period of time, he dropped from 200 pounds in weight to 80 pounds. When he was about to pass from this life into eternity, he asked his father to come into his hospital room. Lying there in bed, he looked up and said, Dad, do you remember when I was a little boy, how you used to hold me in your arms close to your chest? David's father nodded. Then David said, "Do you think, Dad, you could do that one more time? One last time?" Again, his father nodded. He bent down and picked up his 32-year-old, 6'2", 80-pound son and held him close to his chest so the son's face was right next to the father's. They were eyeball to eyeball. Tears were streaming down both faces. The son simply said to the father, "Thank you for building the kind of character into my life that can enable me to face a moment even like this." As father and son mingled their tears, if you look carefully, you can see the fingerprints of God. Sense the presence of God. That verse may be summarized in one sentence no better than the way the New Testament scholar Rodney Combs summarizes it. Visible love is the test for the presence of the invisible God. So, as you walk away from this place, with the mission of this place hopefully embedded in your heart, you will have opportunities to mingle your tears with a grieving mother, to listen to an anxiety-ridden teenager, to hug a father who's losing his son. And you may even hear them ask the question, where is God? Who is God? What does God look like? In my chaplaincy years up at the medical center, I was called one day by a nurse. "Can you please come? I need you to talk to a patient." Made my way to the unit and engaged with the nurse, and she told me she's an elderly patient. I don't remember now, late 80s, early 90s. She lived in a local senior care center. She had outlived all of her friends, her family, her age anyway, and her younger family never came to see her. She was lonely all the way to her core. The loneliness had gotten so bad that this dear elderly woman had taken 3 safety pins, had opened them, and then swallowed them, blunt side down, in the hopes that they would cause internal bleeding and that slowly, silently, imperceptibly, without anyone else knowing, she would painlessly go to sleep and end her loneliness. And the nurse said to me, "Would you please go talk to her?" I went into the room and she was there lying with a wet, damp washcloth over her eyes. I made a bit of noise. She didn't move. I went back out and I said, "I think she's asleep. I don't like waking people up." She said, "No, please, please, go back, talk to her." So I went back in and gently nudged her until she awakened. When she did, she removed that washcloth. She was coming out of the fog of the procedure. She was trying to focus, trying to look up at me. I said, I'm Randy. I'm one of the chaplains." She said, What? And finally, her eyes focused on my face, and she realized who I was. I'm not sure how to describe what came from her. A groan, a moan. She said, "Oh, I had so hoped that the next face I would see would be the face of Jesus." With all due respect, and with no humorous intent, I've realized that I don't look like Jesus any more than I look like Pierce Brosnan. and neither do you. But the word that John etches onto parchment gives us hope. Because he says the presence of Jesus, the face of the invisible God, is seen in the moments of selfless acts of love at the pharmacy, at the clinic, at the chair side. Whenever someone suffers, is wounded, is pushed aside, is damaged, and you step in. You step in that clinic, in that healthcare setting, and do the loving thing. Do you know that when you do that, it just may be that one of your patients will one day call a hygienist, a nurse, a technician over and say, who is that? Who do you mean? Right over there, who was just here, right over there in scrubs. Who is that? Because they remind me. That person reminds me. They remind me of Jesus.